America in crisis, summer of rage, riots and violence. 2020 has been quite an experience so far. Can you imagine where we'll be in another 6 months? Everything that could go wrong went wrong. As if the coronavirus and the worst unemployment numbers in history were not enough. Outrage spills across America, the nation's largest cities are exploding with rage. As angry protesters take to the streets and attack police and destroy property. America today is in chaos, with mass protests, looting, arson attacks, looting, vandalism, and violence spreading from coast to coast. Amidst what is one of the worst health and economic crises ever. This is not going to have a happy ending. Economic turmoil, mass unemployment, civil unrest, corrupt, uncaring government, manipulation of the food chains, and add a pandemic in. This is the perfect storm. We all getting played to turn against one another, wonder who that is. Add into the equation, food shortage, natural disaster, solar minimum, heatwave, locusts attacks. There will be a lot more rioting, looting, and civil unrest as the US economy continues to collapse. What we have seen in the city of Minneapolis is only the start. Social unrest and protests are unfolding across all major US cities. Our country is so profoundly divided. These are not peaceful protests, this is chaos. This is part of the agenda to justify the implementation of military martial law. This has been the plan from the get-go. Everything going according to plan. This is what happens once people realize that looting is systemic and starts at the very top. People are fed up, and this country has lost any economic integrity or a sense of purpose. Those who make a peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable. America is coming apart, as we have riots, much like what we saw happening in Hong Kong. The White House is now suggesting the military may be sent in. Trump tweeted, "When the looting starts, the shooting starts," quoting Miami police chief's notorious 1967 warning. Trump and Pompeo called Hong Kong rioters, freedom fighter. While American protesters are called thugs. Smack of fullest hypocrisy and hegemony nature of the US unassumingly as a policeman in other countries' internal affairs. What the CIA did in Hong Kong, is coming around to haunt us at home. This is called karma. After years of fomenting revolts and rebellions in other countries with zero regards for the people who live there, time for the US to have a taste of their own medicine. Why is America sending troops to quell their own rioters immediately after a day of protests and is making a huge fuss to prevent China from sending in their own troops for Hong Kong protests? Definitely double standards here. In the USA, protests for a few days, sent in the military to shoot. In Hong Kong, protests for 1 year, the police must act with restraining, otherwise, sanctions will be imposed on China. Bringing in the military to the streets of America will only get a lot more people killed. Problem reaction solution. The people will cheer for their troops marching in. Order out of chaos. The aim is to establish an overt police state and surveillance system that is used to oppress the masses and keep control of the country in the hands of the current owners and rulers of the USA after the US empire collapses, for generations to come. The surveillance systems are already in place. Police force training has also already been shifted from de-escalation and preventing violence to escalation and employing violence and brutalizing people. The psychological profile that cops are recruited from has also changed to allow mindless policing. The militarization of the police in terms of equipment and training has also already happened. Returning veterans who have been to war and know the truth, ex-cops and other dissidents of the regime are already being labeled as domestic terrorists. The laws that make the establishment of a police state as a response to a crisis are already signed into law in the Patriot Act and NDAA. All that is required now is a spark of violence that is made to spread and spread. We are here, until finally somebody snaps, cops fire into crowds or crowds firing on cops, and that will give the excuse to fully activate the police state through POTUS declaring martial law. So now here comes civil war, martial law, and the troops. Congress and the Senate will be suspended. The courts will be suspended. Power to rule will be fully shared between the head of DHS, head of FEMA, and POTUS, White House. And there is no limit to how long the president can keep democracy suspended like this, with FEMA, DHS, and White House being in charge of the country, instead of the legislative, judicial, and executive branches of government as the Constitution declares. What happened in Minneapolis was a spark that could ignite a civil war in America. This is going to escalate dramatically as the economy begins to collapse. We are going to see a summer of riots like it's going to be back in the 60s and even worse. When people lose everything and have nothing left to lose, they lose it. And as a result, the militarized police are going to become more militarized. The uprising is the voice of the unheard. We see this explosion of violence and the rioting and the looting, and everything is that we are having a real crisis of faith in some of our institutions. Because there haven't been consequences in the past for bad behavior like Officer Chauvin. He had 19 violations in his career, and it doesn't appear that there was serious action taken against him, and now we end up in this situation. But what is the fair balance in a situation whereas we know of in the history of repression and of anger and justified anger? The vast majority of Americans of all colors detest rioters, want law and order, and do not hate the police. This mob behavior helps the globalists regardless of the media narrative and agenda. Now that the Washington Post is reporting that Officer and George Floyd may have known each other and worked together for years. And the rabbit hole goes deeper and deeper. It's the pieces that we don't see moving on the board that concerns me. As long as we fight with each other, we can't fight the 1%. The reality is if you are not part of the 1%, you are a thug, regardless of color or religion. This is exactly what they wanted. They want America to destroy itself from within. Our enemies have turned the police into a weapon against the American people. We need unity, or we will wake up in a high-tech prison. It's time for the US to unite and force the government to give the US the real hope and change we the people deserve. Welcome back to the Atlantis Report. You are here for your daily dose of the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. We started coming together against the COVID, so they bring this out to divide us again. Mass media psychological subversion. Divide and conquer. All planned perfectly. Especially when everyone is wearing a mask and can't be identified. While you are kept in constant quarantine and under house arrest while absorbing all the fear porn that leaves you anxious and distressed, ask yourself the question, why is society breaking down? With a media-made mind virus, the virus of the crown, maintain the social distance, stay 6 feet apart and lose that soul connection we feel when heart meets heart. It's something you can ponder while you languish in lockdown with a virulent mind virus. The virus of the crown. Dive deep into the rabbit hole and swallow the red pill and apply some critical thinking to what really makes you ill. A tissue we all fall down with a virus so contagious. The virus of the crown. You can lead a horse to water, yet you cannot make it drink. You can show a man the truth, but you cannot make him think. Complicit, compliant, complacent through decades of dumbing down with the virus of the hive mind, the virus of the crown. Indeed, cui bono? Who benefits? American leaders have been encouraging hate against other people and nations for a long time instead of love. Civil unrest is the price they have to pay. We need peace, and if we don't unite for it, we're going to die in war. There is a reason so many people are looking to move out of our major cities. The reason being is that major cities have become cesspools. The reason is that we've all grown to hate each other. It would help if the political class, every side, would conduct themselves as wise rather than zealots hell-bent on destroying their perceived adversaries. All organized chaos, along with COVID, part of a bigger plan. If any of your local representatives tweet, "The president wants to foment conflict and division," they are in on it. Leaders, I hesitate to use the term, your government representatives should be listening to their constituents about their local issues and communicating the action plan their office is taking. Not finger-pointing, blame game, etc. The underlying problems that created this powder keg have been simmering for over 50 years. Money and politics, corruption, imperialism, economic control, never-ending wars, the Great Society program, controlling, not improving education, controlling, not improving, healthcare, etc., etc. If you want to change the system, start in your own community, get involved, hold your local representatives accountable. Point the finger at the actions, or lack thereof, of these representatives. This is what happens when you lock people up for 4 months and throw $1,200 at them to keep quiet while raining billions of wealthy Wall Street CEOs and bankers. Rents can't be paid, mortgages defaulting. What's next now? The lockdown has made the nation stir crazy. The frenzy is more contagious than the virus. People are desperate to add meaning to their lives. They are desperate for a cause. The killing of some guy we don't know by a cop we don't know has lit a fuse. The police are not the band of brothers. They will stand down. We are on our own people. Look to your provisions and your security. Authorities reportedly arrested Floyd because he attempted to pay a deli with a $20 bill that was allegedly counterfeit. Only the U.S. Treasury owns the right to pass counterfeit dollars on the private entity Fed Command. If everyone else does it, society breaks. Posse Comitatus is to limit the powers of the federal government in using federal military personnel to enforce domestic policies within the United States. So they staged the Floyd police brutality event. Floyd and the Cope were 17-year acquaintances, then start protesters in the streets. Add in more paid protesters, burn buildings, gives the government the excuse to send in the troops. Totally what I expected from this coronavirus pandemic. 1. Incite chaos. 2. Invoke emergency. 3. Martial law. 4. Suspend voting. 5. Profit. We are about to get screwed. Pay attention, please. This was the Atlantis Report. Please like, share, subscribe. And please take some time to subscribe to my backup channels. I do upload videos there too. You'll find the links in the description box. You will also find a PayPal link if you want to make a donation. Thank you wholeheartedly to all those of you who have already donated. Stay safe and healthy, friends.